All right,
Fantastic.
Brian.
All right. So excited. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining Shawn and I and our special guest today on our Just Two Dads episode. It is November 11th. So first thing, we always like to talk about what's going on in the world right now. Let's talk about it. It is Veterans Day here in the United States. So for all of those who have served and protected our freedoms here in the United States, we thank you so much for your service and appreciate you and think about you, not just today, but especially today and all other days. So and now as we're dealing with sort of the fallout of the election, which is still not formally decided upon. Our democracy is it's constantly tested, and so it's an amazing time to be alive. We've got new challenges going on this year with the pandemic, and our world has changed significantly, and our perspectives have as well. So we appreciate you taking an hour of your time to sit with us and hear what we have to say. We always joke about it. We're just a couple of dads started to have a conversation about issues that revolve around families who have a lot of, listen, most families have issues when it comes to their finance and their health and their futures. And for us in particular, because we both have children who have been dealing with special needs their whole lives, we decided to make this part of our conversation. And as it turns out, luckily for us, our podcast has really expanded. We started on just a couple of guys on a Facebook page, and now we've gone a little bit more professional with our producer, Sean Hall, who nobody gets to see, but he does all the magic behind the scenes. And thank you, Shawn, for being there. And with my partner, Shawn Francis, we like to take an hour every week and talk about things that are important. And we've been so lucky and fortunate that we've been graced to have amazing guests who are, we call them warriors. And I used to say, oh, maybe we're overusing that word. I don't think we can overuse the word for the people who we have had on our show. And today is no exception. We're really excited. We call her Dr. Jen. She says she likes to be called a whole bunch of things. Dr. D, hey you. We probably won't call you hey you today, but Dr. Jen, we're really excited to hear your story today. Thank you for being here and giving us a part of your time. And Shawn Francis, as always, I love you, my brother in the fight here. And how you doing today? You doing good?
I'm doing great. I am exceptionally thankful that we get to have these conversations. And thank you to everyone that's been tuning in and has played a role in us going from a Facebook page, Facebook Live, to now YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other outlets that continue to grow each day.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. Yes.
Talk about our guest today, Shawn.
Yes. With that said, I would like to introduce everyone to and thank again Dr. Jennifer Dustow for joining us today. And as I was saying to her as we were prepping to go live, there is a certain amount of respect that people afford one who has a child with special needs and as a warrior by circumstance. You make a choice that you would make several times over. But when you're in the presence of a warrior who does not have a child that has special needs and is a warrior nonetheless, I think that is, I don't know if it's definitely a different type of respect. So I'd love to start by figuring out how you and that path found each other. Tell us a little bit about that and your work, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. See, I don't know whether everyone else sees that I'm sandwiched between two really amazing men that have a real gift with energy and positive. So there's no way I can blow this. There's no way I can give a bad answer because you just look at these two guys beside me. They're amazing. I'm like a sandwich of happiness.
Thank you so much.
You're awesome. Yeah, thank you. It's very sweet.
Well, you guys are amazing. And the way that you guys touch people's lives is amazing because dialogue is the most important thing. A lot of times we hide in the corners and we don't want people to know. We don't want our neighbor to know. We don't want our coworker to know. We don't even want our best friend to know at times. And when that darkness occurs, not good things grow from it. So when we get the sunshine on it, and no matter how messy it is, because life's messy. And it's when for myself, I found the messier life is, And the more I embrace it and breathe in it, the more joy and beauty I see in everything I do. So I'm going to weave back to the question you asked me after I went ahead and
I
pointed
love
out
that. What a
how
great
amazing.
beginning of that
Well,
conversation.
you got to keep in mind, I am sandwiched in between amazingness on both sides. So I can't blow this.
It is our honor that you are here,
Thank you.
the work that you do.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm a cognitive behavioral learning specialist, and I started that journey, seems like 5 million years ago. And I was kind of known as the cleaner. So whenever there was a child that um, other people were needing help with or a new perspective on, they'd give me a call. They would say, "Hey, we've got this child. What do you think?" And I'm a person that runs into a burning building rather than leave, like common
Mhm.
Hmm.
sense. So that tells you my
Yeah.
level of common sense is pretty low. So there was a situation where someone called me up and they said, "We've got this 3-year-old that's in preschool, and she's attacking the coworkers, and she has bitten someone and it drew blood. So once
Wow.
the skin is broken, there's new paperwork and there's new
Hmm.
policy that comes into place because of safety and things like that." So they said, "We're in the process of doing the paperwork for this child to be removed from the school and put in another program." And she's really sweet. And I'm like, "They're all sweet. Don't
Mm.
call me. I've got a big workload right now." So then they said, "Well, this child has autism." I said, "I have no idea what autism is." And that was
Wow.
when it first started out. And I said, "I'll probably suck at it. I'm probably the last person you should call." And so they're like, "Well, we've got nothing else. Nobody else wants to touch this case." So that always perks my interest, because when everyone else gives up, you're given more options to really trust your gut. You're not using policy, you're not using programs, you're not using approaches. You're always in the moment. And once again, in the beginning, when I mentioned being in the moment is messy, and you can
Mm.
fail miserably. You can succeed successfully, but you can really fail it and bomb it. So I go into the school, and there's this tiny little girl. I swear she maybe weighed 10 pounds in the
Oh my God.
corner, just tiny as anything, and afraid. She was terrified. So she was urinating in the corner. So basically, the parents would drop the child off. And when I met the parents, they were like everyone else. They were lost. They didn't know what to do. They were embarrassed. They were hopeful. They wanted someone to help their child. So anyway, so back to the first meeting, and there was this, and of course the teachers are exasperated,
Sure.
and they want the child gone, and so they're hoping that I'll come in and that I'll see what they see, and I'll sign the paperwork, and here we go. And so for me, she's 3 years old. She can't vote. She can't drive a car. That makes me responsible. So I looked at her, and the first thing I noticed was the odor, because you can't go wrong on that, right? Because it
Wow.
wasn't just urine that was happening. So they said, "Well, you take the case." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to need um, at least 30 days to do it my way." And when you're in a desperate situation, people say yes, 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 yes. And so
Sure.
my next step was, okay, I need a contract for this. And so we get the contract up. And the other thing that I include in my contract is when people feel things financially, they really saddle up and do the work because it costs them. And
Hmm.
so I said, "So if you fire me off this contract," by the way, that's not uncommon for me to get fired, "but if I get fired off this contract, you pay me out." So they're more likely to, do the 30 days with me, whatever that looks like, right? Rather than firing me. So, but I had it in there all like, yes, 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 everybody signed, everyone's all happy. So the first day I went in, I got a chair and I placed it. So basically the parents come in and drop the child off. And then I was able to meet the parents for the first time. And both the mom and dad were crying. I mean, it was really hard. So I had to go to the bathroom and clean myself up. Because you can't be in that moment of such desperation and feel the weight of this is the parents are feeling like their last chance. And as I said to them, it's not your last chance. This is just one more. We're going to get up tomorrow, I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
You just got to remember that. You just got to remember to breathe. We will get up tomorrow. So I just said, I'll do what I can. But I also let them know, I'll probably get fired, and they're like, who says that? I'm like, well, I'm going to lay all this stuff up because once it starts to get bumpy here, the first thing they're going to be looking for is heads to chop. So back into the classroom, I get myself a chair. And, of course, the teachers are upset, and this has disrupted their classroom. And now they have another person in their classroom. So it's no longer their classroom. It's a circus. So you have that energy that's going on. So I'm sitting in the chair, and so I get a Vogue magazine. I know people are paying me good money, so I'm going to look at a Vogue magazine for the day. So in this situation, the preschool was only 4 hours. So they went home. It was, I think, 12:30 they went home or something like that. I can't remember exactly the times because it was like so long ago. So I got the Vogue magazine, and I would just turn the page slowly. I'd keep her in the corner eye in case she decides she wants to attack me, because I want to keep my scarring down to a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So she's in the corner of my eye, and she's kind of noticing me. Like, you're not dragging me out. You're not verbally saying all sorts of stuff I should be doing, all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, ha, I've rocked your world. Your expectation of my interaction has now shifted. So I just kept going through the magazine. That's what I did. And I'd start the magazine again. So by the end of the day, so then I would leave, and then they would pick up, the child would be picked up by the parents. The teachers, that's not what they were expecting. So there was a meeting. So already the first day we're in the discussion of, I think we've hired the wrong person. And so one of
And
the
by the way,
things
if I can ask you a question, so the contract, is it the school is paying the contract, or the parents, or is it some combination of them? Like, who's responsible for engaging you in that situation? Who was the responsible party?
Okay, so in that situation, I had to sign it confidentially because.
Oh, got it. Oh, yeah. Okay. But in
Okay, so
general, I guess in general, is it
well, the best way I can put it is in Hawaii, I was the first person to ever be written by name in the IEP contract.
got it? Okay.
So some of the cases I take on are kind of messy. So there's a confidentiality aspect to it about who's paid what part of it for obvious reasons, for due process and.
Sure.
And that's one of the things is I don't like doing court appearances either.
Sure.
Yeah.
But in general, for those that have an IEP and things that are written in, and therapies that are written into the IEP, in general, there's public support, comes from the school district, or there's private source, right? So the parents are expected to pay to some degree. So it could be some variation of that. But if you're written into an IEP, you're part of the educational process for the child now, right?
Right. So now you know your answer.
Got it. Right.
And I haven't breached anything.
Right. No,
So,
for sure. And I know it varies. With our children, we have that same thing. Some we do in the school, and some we have to do private. So good. I just wanted to, So because
you never
that's
know
why you have a meeting
by state either, too. By state. That's why it's always fascinating to figure out as far as regional centers and things like that go, too.
For sure.
Right. Well, the DOE is usually state. Yeah. So this isn't Hawaii. Yeah. And so this is DOE, and so that's state. So, anyway, so the meeting that.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Night,
I just wanted to.
That's okay. I'm a girl. I remember when my story ends. Or begins. No, these are really good questions. And some of them I can answer and some of them I can't. But you kind of know why.
Got it.
So then that day, the teachers were very upset. The principal was in. The vice principal was in there. So the discussion is, well, maybe we made a mistake. I don't think we're paying you to look at a Vogue magazine. And so I said, that's good. You still have to pay me out for the 30 days. But before I leave the campus, would you like to know why I'm choosing to do this? And there was an aide that was in the classroom that was there, really sweet woman. And she said, well, I'd like to. And so I said, this child needs to feel safe. This child doesn't feel safe. And I need to create consistency so that this child feels safe. I'm not asking this child to do anything. And this child's been asked to do so many different things. They're just going to attack me. And we're not going to solve anything. So that kind of calmed everyone down. So the next day I did the exact same. I wore exact same clothes, same Vogue magazine, same positioning of the chair, same routine. So this is, and your butt goes to sleep. Like it's like we move around a lot and we don't realize how much we move around. But when you're sitting in a chair for almost 4 hours, like you get up and you're walking like you got a walker in front of you. Like it is uncomfortable. Like your back is uncomfortable, the whole bit. So anyway, so fast forward day 3 or 4, I think it was. And I was sitting in the chair and the teachers and the principal, they were, it's gone on a bit long for them. And so then I'm sitting there and I'm moving the page and I'm thinking there, I think I blew it. I was wrong about this. My arrogance of how I think this is going to work has shot myself in the foot. And, and I'm already thinking, I'll let them out of the contract because, I've just blown it so bad. And the whole time, and it was interesting because I was no longer absorbed on the child. It was more about me looking good and about me being successful. And this was the first time up against a kid with autism. And so I'm self-absorbed in my pity. I don't even see this little hand that's gone in underneath my hand and is now moving the page because I haven't continued the routine of moving the page of my Vogue magazine. And so I'm thinking, son of a gun. Self-absorbed works.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I got out of that whole thing was that being self-absorbed worked.
Wow.
So the whole time, then my heart starts racing, right? And I'm thinking, all right, I can save my career here. I've spent a lot of money. I still have a student loan to pay off, so I'm saving my career here. So I turned to her and I said to her, we got a lot of work to do, sweetheart. Are you in? And she went like this. So I said, the first thing we got to do is you got to stop peeing your pants. You smell. So she went like this. And that was the end of the day, right? So I went home and I was like, to begin with, I couldn't even talk about it because it was such a, I could have really blown this. And the other part of it was, oh my God, this kid let me in her world.
How long ago was this?
Oh, remember when the dinosaurs started roaming the earth? It was just after that.
I think I was about 13 at the time, so I got it.
Yeah, so there was fire. There was the discovery of the round wheel. Little small stuff like, brimstone, right? Oh, probably 17 years. Wow. 20 years. It's a long time. Yeah. Well over 20 years. Yeah. So then we started underway. And then, of course, the parents were, the mom cried with me for, I think, the first 6 months that I was working on that case. She just cried every day. And she was constantly bringing me stuff. And I'm like, you can't do that. But, being a mom myself, I know what that feels like. And so that little girl taught me what it felt like for autism, what that label meant for her. Wow. And we had so many funny stories. There was one where I don't know with your kids, there's a test called Dibble's test in Hawaii where they measure the preschooler academically and where they place. And so we were working on the test environment, the sounds, the paper, what to expect in the room, preparing her for it. And we weren't getting very far. And I was really frustrated that day because, I'm human and I have all these other emotions that go with it. So I'm not perfect. Right. I perfectly get through the day, but that's it. So I said to her, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. And she just starts crying.
Oh, my God.
And she says, I don't want to kill you. And I said, oh, sweetheart, that's humor. She said, I don't know what humor is. So then we got into the whole thing, what humor was and breaking it all down. And so I thought, well, that's cool. So then, I don't know, a few days later, one of her requirements is when the playground is that she can't just hang out with me with her hand in her mouth and stare at the world. She has to go around and be uncomfortable because life is uncomfortable, and say hi to other people that will never like her. So I said to her, the way I said it, I can go around and say hi to a lot of these people, and I'll guarantee you they don't like me either. So you know what, buck up? You're doing the same thing. You're going to go around and say hi to people that aren't going to like you either. It's called life. And so that's what she would do. And so one of the ones was on a basketball court, because she didn't know how to bounce a ball, and usually her face bounced it, right? She'd push it down, and her face would bounce it back down, right? And there'd be tears and sometimes blood. And so she was getting better at it. So she would just keep both of her hands here and do this. So I said to her, you have to go bounce the ball up and say hi to someone. And so she walks up and she goes, you're killing me, Miss Jen. You're killing me. And then she turns around to me and she goes, that's humor.
Wow.
I like that. You got it, girl. You got it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So she taught me everything about autism. And so because that case was successful, the next thing you know, someone else was saying, oh, hey, why don't you try this one? And then it just snowballed. And so as far as formal training, I'm going to have to say that little girl trained me.
Yeah.
Right.
And you were with her for a 6-month period of time? Is that how long you worked with her?
I was with her. It was a little over a year.
Got it.
Wow. So by the
and
time
have
we
you
had
seen her or communicated with them since as she's gotten older?
Well, one of the things that we did in the agreement is because I needed to know the long-term effects of my humor. So one of the things that I negotiated was to be able to have contact with her here and there as we went along. And it turned out really good because when she went into middle school, then when she went into high school, academically, she was off the charts. But translating it was the issue. And so she got into a private school in high school. And there was an incident where she attacked another girl. So then, of course, I was the one called in because the parents automatically asked. So we went in, I sat down, and I said to her, what's going on? She said, I won't be bullied.
Wow.
So I said, so what did you do? She said, I scratched the biggest girl. So I said, so what do you think the outcome is? She said, you're here. I said, yeah, that's not good. So
that's
she said,
funny.
I don't think they'll take my backpack anymore. And I said, honey, you can't scratch people and you can't do that. You have to go to an adult. You have to go to a teacher and talk to them. And so the whole time she's smiling and nodding, but I already know what she's already done it.
Right.
And so that was the only time that I was called in. And of course I made other agreements with her that, we don't make this choice. We as in her. So whenever I would be in a conversation with her, I'd say we, and she said, I know that means me. I said, yes, it does, honey. And that's so fantastic. She agreed that she wasn't going to choose violence again, that she was going to go to a teacher. So I wasn't called again. So my guess is nothing other than that occurred. And then later on, she got accepted into a very prestigious university, and she's studying medicine.
Oh my
God!
Wow,
that is fantastic. Now, this has got to be a challenge. This has got to be a challenge. No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say she wants to specialize in pediatrics.
Of course she does.
Isn't that incredible?
As best as you can. And I know this is near impossible. Put into words what that feels like, knowing how you've impacted her life.
That I'm part of something bigger than whatever I think I am. And that as much as, because we're always working on evolving ourselves. We're always looking for a better version of ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we can relax into who we are and be okay with how messy we are and how we don't have answers, and that the best that we can bring to the moment is compassion and kindness and actual love, and to care about someone. I don't have to agree with other people, but to be respectful and to be part of that. So basically what I said is when I'm before God and I say, I have a lot of quirky behavior. So before you pass me through the pearly gates, because we're going to assume I'm going to get in, right? Just going to make that assumption.
Yeah, I think you're pretty good. I think you're pretty solid.
But I have some really, really obnoxious behavior that I have. Can we discuss why I have it? And then it's sort of like, well, it turns out it's used for this reason. I seem to have an affinity to working with kids with autism. And with adults and people outside of it, not so good, because I'm blunt, I'm very honest, and I don't take sides.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a journey. And so when you're participating in a group, there's an expectation of choosing sides.
Right.
There's an expectation of loyalty. There's an expectation of protocol. And I kind of don't have protocol because a lot of times things change around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had this one little boy. They called me on the case. He would only look down. He wouldn't look up. So they had his neck checked. They had all that other kind of stuff. And so when they called me up, I said, he's just disengaging. There's nothing about our world that interests him. And so they're like, yeah, we get that. We've been trying all sorts of stuff. We tried stickers and all that other stuff. And I'm like, you got to figure out what's important to the kid. So I said, when he's at school, can I come and look at his bedroom? And so I went over. Kid had fish everywhere. He was just loves fish. And he had like posters and stuff out of different magazines. And it was just phenomenal. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, I'll meet him. So then it was a few weeks later because of what my schedule was like, right? So I went to the woman who does my nails and I said to her, I need some fish on my big toes.
I
So
love this.
she said, I don't know how to do fish. And so she said, well, do you know anyone that can draw fish and because do that whole artwork, right? She says, oh, I
Right.
think I got this one. I said, well, we'll wait. We'll call her over. And so she came over from another salon. So she painted these really incredible goldfish on my big toes. So I was ready to go see the guy, see the little fella. I call him the little guy, right? And so for the eyes, they had put those little fake diamond things for the eyes, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
Oh
would kind of
yeah.
glisten, sort of a
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go meet him, and so the parents are really embarrassed. The first thing is and they're trying to pull the kid's shoulders back, and they're trying to pull his head up, and they're really hoping that I'll take the case, right? And I'm like, oh, sweetie, you're going to miss a bullet. If you don't end up with me, you've missed a bullet. You're great. You're good. You're probably better off. So I went over, and I slid my feet under where he could see. So he was looking at the goldfish, and he's turning his head, and then he starts to slowly look up. I said, hi, I'm Auntie Jen. I guess we're working together. She goes like this. I said, then. So then I said, so you don't get to see my fish. So I went over and pulled a pair of socks on my feet because I only work with people that like my toes.
That's funny.
And so the kid's eyes went huge, right? And so
Right.
he's like this sort of a thing. So I said, okay. So then that kind of started the process. And in that situation, they just needed me to build the team and to help the team understand what was happening in their thought process, the little guy's thought process and everything else. So that one was
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't even a week for that one. It was just building the bridge between them.
Interesting. I'm sure you put your socks on and he thought, you're killing me, Dr. Jen.
Pretty
You're
much.
killing me, Dr. Jen.
No, he was like, out. Out. I want her out of my
Get
house.
out.
This is
Wow.
my house.
You're killing me, Dr. Jen. This would be my favorite saying
Wow.
now.
Yeah, it was mine
Yeah.
for a
That's
long time. It was a big joke.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sean, you have a
So
couple
everything
questions?
went.
I
I was
you
just
have
gonna.
some questions.
I was gonna say. So how has it evolved from there with your first client that found you and created this cause and purpose within you to what you now do? Because I think if we talked about it, I know you're working on a lot of things and always working on stuff. Share with us how it's evolved, and then some of the things that you're working on now too. What you can share, because I think that you mentioned that there's a handful of things that you have on the plate. When we first spoke, there were a couple of things that you had that were seeds, so to speak, that are now beginning to blossom. So if you could share some of those in addition to the path that led up to that, ever since that remarkable first client.
I get bored easily. Um, so for me, I'm always, when someone says something to me, oh, we can't do that, or it's not possible. I'm like, I can build a team and we'll figure it out. And I was in a meeting, I think a year ago or so, and a really devastating story that I heard was in Bangladesh, because families can't afford services because of how poor they are, and most people that work there, they want to be paid. And my husband always points out to me, sometimes getting paid for some of your stuff would be great, honey. I'm like, karma. It's good karma. Things always work
Yeah.
out. That's what they are. I just see things
Yeah.
as good karma. And so they were talking about how parents were forced to leave their children in the jungle to die because if they couldn't work, they couldn't bring an income because their lifestyle is very different than ours. There's no welfare system in Bangladesh. So everybody has to work. And it hit me at the core, right? So I went home, because I love to cry too, because it's a good way to clean out your eyes. So I had a
We're big.
really
Sean
good
and I are big criers. We get it.
Awesome.
We cry all the time.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I also believe in prayer. So I went home and I just said, I've heard this. This has touched my ears. So I must be some part of this somehow, somewhere. Just guide me to this. And then it was actually through LinkedIn. A gentleman contacted me and asked me if I could help him. And he was in Bangladesh. So I said, let's explore that. And then the next thing that happened, we created a non-government organization in Bangladesh that serves children and families that have zero income. So I donate all my time, and we do it through Skype. I have a translator, and I laugh a lot. They're fun people. And in translation, I'm sure I've offended them so much.
Now this is in Bangladesh exclusively?
Yes, right now. It's called, what is the name? Aloha Autism Development Foundation or something like that. I don't worry about that end of it. My only end is to see clients. So they set it up, and it's kind of difficult right now with COVID,
Right.
because of how we end up having to see families and with the translator and things like that. So we're not as busy as we were before. Because a lot of them have to travel a long ways to be able to see me. And
Wow.
very passionate people, very passionate, very kind.
Wow.
So that's one of my projects. And so the organization, I believe, has been working with the Bangladesh government. And so they have funding, which they're now redirecting to help some of these families through that foundation. So
Wow.
that's fun. That stretches me.
Sure.
Yeah, I kind of like that one because whenever it starts with the Skype is always in and out, and the translation, the other part too. And I'm like, no, 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 that's not what I meant. That's not what I want. So they're like, just tell them, wait. Okay, and then I have to think, okay, how else can I explain this that they're gonna click? Okay, that's what I want them to work on for their
Right.
child.
Now
And so
you have an app as well, correct?
yes, a parent said to me, I'm not very good with technology, so thank heavens for your tech person. They did a great job with all of this.
Join the
Because
club of which we are president. We are both president.
Yeah, we don't know how to run technology. Thank God we have Sean Hall. So otherwise,
Yeah.
we wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, and they're the behind the scenes, and nobody sees what an amazing job they do, right? They're the
That's right.
unsung heroes, right?
That's
We
right.
stand
Without
up
a
there
doubt.
and we look great, and we get accolades or tomatoes, whichever comes first. Doesn't matter. It's
Right.
reaction, it's movement, it's art, right? And they're the behind the scenes. They're the part that just pulls it all together and creates that harmony, right?
Most definitely.
For sure.
So, anyways, this parent said to me, because my research, the other thing that put me on the map for autism is my research is actually still one of the biggest ones in the world with autism. I think it's in 27 languages.
Tell us about the research, where they can find it, and then the name of the app, so that Sean can put that in the chat to make sure the audience sees it as well, too. Please.
Oh, okay. Well, the research is extremely boring. So if you're looking for a book to put you to sleep, it's
Good.
it's
We read
I think,
finance books. Finance books usually put us
then
to
you're
sleep.
fine.
So
You're fine.
yeah, no, we're good with this. We're good. Yeah, these are good.
It's bilateral exercises. So I did it for my dissertation. And so what I said was, because they were at the stage of medicating, and sometimes medication is needed, but I sort of see it as a last possibility. And
For
so
sure.
I was doing some work with the Traumatic Brain Injury Committee at the time. And so I started thinking, what if we do midline exercises, which is exercises that cross the midline like this. They use them for stroke victims. It's been in yoga. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. What if we're able to create an intervention like that during circle time in preschool classrooms, and to see if we can focus the brain? And so I did a 6-week study, and we never knew whether we were going to be doing the exercises or not, because we flipped a coin that morning. And the people that were involved in the exercises couldn't have any formal training in it. It was just a handout and a quick meeting with me. So what I also wanted to show is that it doesn't have to cost everything to do things, because in this field, the cost, there are certain things that do cost a lot, and you can't, it just is what it is. But there are other areas that can be just as effective that doesn't have to cost everything. So what ended up happening after the 6-week study was, it blew my mind. It blew everyone's mind. And so I created a smaller book, which is on Amazon. I think it's called Midline Exercises. I think it's just it's a small, easy book. It covers the research, and it makes it so easy to understand the actual research. The book's expensive, and it fits more into universities and stuff like that. And I never recommend it. I mean, I wrote it, and it's boring. It's just like, I can't believe when I read back over it, I'm like, oh my God, I was smart. I'm very smart today.
Tell us about tell us
app,
about the app and the name of it and everything.
Okay,
too.
so the app is based off of that research,
Okay.
because I use the midline exercises when I get parents, when I first start working with them. The first thing I do is they have to have some form of control with their child, because it makes them feel more connected. They're gonna feel like they're not gonna hand their power over to me so much with their child.
Right.
Because I think that the person that should be the closest to the child at the end of the day is the parents. And that I work through the parents towards the child, like build the bridge between them, but my job is to step out, not be that person in between. And so one of the things that I always recommend is doing the midline exercises, because you'll find with a lot of kids with autism, they can't cross the midline. So a lot of times there's hand over hand. So one arm up here, I don't know if you can see that, and then going across and touching your knee on the other side. A lot of times they can't do that sort of thing, and we just assume they can, because it's pretty straightforward. There's no physical disability for them, but their brain isn't wired that way. So by starting to do this kind of stuff, starts to get the brain to start communicating, because we have a side of our brain that's dominant. So if we get into a fight or flight situation, we have a side of our brain that takes over. It takes automatic control.
Right.
What I have found with children with autism, that is always on. And so to get this other side of the brain saying, hey, I'm part of the party too. Let's not forget about me. So by doing these kind of midline exercises, the brain goes, what's that? What just happened?
So if you can, midline is sort of, because some people are familiar, depending on anyone that's watching, depending on where their child is in terms of a diagnosis, how new they are to it. If you can, talk about midline versus baseline and things of that sort, because I'm used to both of the terms. Those are the terms that may be new to somebody as well. For someone that's newer to those terms, talk about that, if you will.
Okay, so midline exercises or bilateral exercises are anything that crosses the center of the body. There are things like Brain Gym does a whole bunch of these different activities. They're another really good organization, and they've been around. What I tend to like is organizations that are not hugely deep into profits, but they're more there for service. So, and so when I get parents and I teach them these different things, and in the process, the other thing I like to do too is these children hear a lot of negativity. And they take in a lot of the negativity.
Right.
And a lot of it's frustration. And they're just as frustrated trying to reach out as we're trying to reach in.
Sure.
And so some of the ones that I have in the exercises in the app is like they hug themselves and they say, good job. So they get to say to themselves, good job.
Good job. Yeah. I use that a lot. These other things, returns of frustration, which I'm going to ask you in a minute from a very selfish standpoint. But
Awesome.
so
I love it.
what is the actual name of the app?
It's called Happy DRJ. It's on Android and Apple, and we've just launched it in 15 languages.
Okay, fantastic.
It's $1. And it's a one-time fee of $1. I upload new social stories. That's the other part of it. So one part is the happy exercises, so that once the child learns how to do it, and they're done with cartoon characters, is that if you happen to be at Walmart or something like that, and the child is starting to get angsty,
Right.
you can start to say, how about we do our happy exercises?
And again, it's Happy
And then
ERG, did you say? Sorry.
DRJ, like Dr. J.
DRJ. Dr. J.
DRJ.
Dr.
I
Jen.
gotcha. Dr. Jen.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
I got
gotcha.
that.
Fantastic. Good.
You're on it.
I got that one.
So, so then they can go ahead and do these exercises, and they can be modified to do them wherever. You don't have to be all over the place to do them. You can do different things. And so the other part that's really important about these exercises is the affirmation that the child says to themselves.
Okay. All right. Now, were you going to say something? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So the other part of the app, because to me, I just figured that's not enough for $1. So the other part of the app is social stories, right? So there are all sorts of short little social stories that the children can watch. And I have characters, Ashley and Sam, and Todd is the kind of the service provider in it. Todd's the tortoise, and I should know this. Ashley's the cat and Sam's the dog. And so they go through different things that are very quick.
Right.
One of the social stories that we have is one of the characters is in school and they're upset because the teacher's telling them to look at them. And they don't want to because they get lost in the teacher's eyes. So the other character says, oh, just look at their forehead right here. So then they think you're looking at them and they think you're listening. So that's one social story. I mean, I condensed it, but they're no more than 3 minutes each social story. But what it does is it takes the child right to what they need to know to do. And so I try to add 2 new social stories a month on them. I just recently did one on texting. I did one. There's one that we're working on right now for video games. And they're just short to help the child kind of understand what's going on the way they do. The characters are very simple. It's very, there's no overstimulation.
Right.
In some apps, it's because they're so excited and they assimilate information so quickly. These little ones are like computers. This slows them down. And it's the old style of storybooks. You remember when Mr. Rogers, our hero, Mr. Rogers, he would turn the cover and it would be really quiet and nobody's moving.
Right.
And they're just in that moment.
Yes.
It works. It works with them. So it took us
great.
a year and a half to perfect this. There's a lot of money and there's a lot of work that went into it to be so simple at this end.
Well, I want to. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep cutting you off.
So I try to add 2 additional stories a month because they have to go through approval before. Because I send the stories out to a bunch of different people and I say, okay, tell me everything that's wrong with them. Tell me everything that you think is, and these are OT people, speech people, like where are your issues with all of them? And I can't solve all of them.
Right.
But if I solve enough of them and keep it simple, then the story goes up. So sometimes it's maybe a 1 story a month, sometimes it's 2. And those are all included in the $1. So the $1 that the parent pays, that's it.
I'm just going to say that's a value that, whenever you get an upgrade or an update of any kind when it comes to technology, with an app or something like that, that's not common. So it's very obvious that your focus is on value and on people more so than profit. And we like to say that, if you take care of people, if you have a business that provides value and takes care of people and puts people before the profit takes care of itself. And that's tremendous. So I want to make sure, again, Happy Dr. J. I want to make sure that people see that and go to it.
So Happy is the acronym for each one of the exercises. So there's one exercise for A, there's one for H, one for A, one for P, one for the other P, and one for Y.
Okay.
So that's how we came up with it. So, and we find that sometimes some of the kids like one of the exercises a month, and they'll say, "I want to do my ACE exercise." I'm like, "You go."
Right. Right. Okay. Now for the selfish question.
Love it.
Okay.
I just
So
I just
Yes, that's it
contributed
right there.
I just contributed $1 to it. So I just
there you
helped
You
go.
out.
go.
Fantastic.
And just so you know where
Yeah.
your dollar goes when you do this, I use a lot of the proceeds for the Bangladesh project.
I love
Good.
it.
Um,
I
And
figured it's for
so
I'm
good use.
broadcasting from my phone. So as soon as we're done, I will make sure I do the very
ah,
same thing.
you
And
guys are
here,
the best. See,
Beautiful.
that's why I'm sandwiched between you guys.
look, and here's where it's good, and where it may apply for me. Where I'm going to try and use it. So our son Elijah is 14. He was diagnosed with autism at 3. And as you know, boys generally, but this applies to us as much on the spectrum, produce less melatonin than girls. So therefore, the erratic sleep patterns are more common with boys. And his erratic sleep pattern used to be that he would have a hard time falling asleep. You get in the bed, you kind of hear the iPad or murmuring, whatever have you, and he stays up.
Yeah.
And so we introduced melatonin. My wife is the research information
Mm-hmm.
person. She's like, well, we're going to try this. We're going to try that. I'm just like, yes. And I'm along, with it. So that's how we balance each other out. Remember beforehand, we were talking before we went on air about the balance in terms of strengths and weaknesses as it pertains to gender. And that's how we work. That's her strength.
You know
So
the wonderful. I'm just going to jump in
yeah,
here. The wonderful
yeah.
thing that happens with these kids, because we hear so much of the negative what happens. One of the things that these kids do end up creating in their family units when we all get on board with it, they
Mhm.
create the most powerful teams.
Yes, yes, yeah,
See, you
yeah.
and your wife are a powerful team, and my guess, Brian, that whatever your team you got is a powerful
Yeah,
team. So when you
for
walk
sure.
into that room, no matter
Mhm.
how many experts are sitting on the other side with
Right,
all these
Cannot.
brilliant ideas and everything else, because we have them, we have
right,
amazingly
Yeah.
brilliant ideas, but do they work? Are
right.
they going to work for that situation? And when you guys become these powerful teams, one's the researcher, one does this. I mean, you get the child to where they need to be because these
For
children
sure.
are gifts. I mean,
Mhm.
the things that they can do
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
blows my mind.
And
Yeah.
so where we are is that it was a bit of a sleep thing, and generally like just sleep itself. But now, for the last, I guess maybe 2 weeks, what's been a little different is his routine. It seems to be more behavioral than anything else. And so he will clean the bathrooms before he goes to bed, right? That has to happen before he goes to bed. But what's taking place is he'll begin the cleaning at like midnight. He won't do it before then. And when he's done, he's really dragging it out. And he will be done between 3 and 5 a.m. And so we've gone from the look, you gotta get in bed, gotta get in bed, you gotta get up, to the okay, fine, you do your thing, we're going to sleep. And then when he gets in bed, you're getting woken up. Not to mention, you don't sleep, even though he's not going to run out of the door. You're still not as sound asleep until you know that he's in bed. So, looking at the behavioral piece, what outside of natural things like melatonin gummies and everything, and that's a good tip for those of you out there that haven't tried that. Make sure that you're probably starting with 5 milligrams, I think, rather than 10, so your kid isn't too groggy the next day. But if in a situation where it seems a little more behavioral and maybe now his system has even gotten used to that and that's not working as much, what might you even begin to suggest in a situation such as that?
Well, the humor side of me would say you need to add washing your car to that list because he would happily do it. So that
Yeah.
would be the first. That would be the
I'll
first
bring
thing I
mine
would add.
over.
I mean, like, don't waste
Yeah.
this because if this kid wants to clean, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you could probably rent him out as well. So there's a little bit of extra cash.
You do have
Um,
a point there, though, because I know I need to be more active about it, but I've talked about, okay, if we get an exercise program together, maybe that takes place at night. I don't know, that might wake him up, but it might wear him out. I've thought of that.
okay, so it's okay. So whenever I hear about behaviors, behaviors are communication.
Mm-hmm.
They're communicating something to you. We call them behaviors, but they're designed to get what he needs.
Right.
So what does he need? So that would be the first place that I'd be looking at is what does he need?
Mm.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
he has this whole thing about, he's had it for a long time, of not wanting to sleep. So what does sleep mean to him?
Mm.
This may not be the case. I had one little boy that I was working with, and when we got to the bottom of it all, to him, falling asleep meant that he died.
Mm.
Oh,
Doesn't make, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to you or I, but for
Right.
sure.
him, that's what he felt it was. That he was going to die, and he wasn't going to wake up, and that he wasn't going to be there for his parents and his dog,
Ah.
Scotty.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
I would have never figured that out on my own. All I started with was the fact that this behavior is trying to communicate something.
Hmm.
So what is he trying to communicate?
I do
Um,
know. I do know that, for most people, when they talk about the pandemic, they're like, "Gosh, it's been so stressful on us and everything." And for me, really selfishly, it hasn't been as big. Even though our girls want to go back to school, you know, I would drive them to school in the morning. Then I'm at the office, meeting clients, and then picking them up in the afternoon. And then there's a good chance I may meet with clients again at night, making my own schedule. Again, Brian and I, our primary work is we have no work in financial services. So
mhm.
helping put plans together and things of that sort. When the pandemic hit, I'm like, everything moves to Zoom. They're getting twice as much done without going anywhere. And then
Yeah.
school is online. I'm like, that's easy for me. And then I'm trying to not, well, I'm not worried about it. Try to think of them as well. And he has exhibited very little stress about it. But as we know, for kids on the spectrum, routine is very, very important. And part of his routine was certain stops that we'd make after school when we pick up, his siblings, or after we drop them off. There's certain stores that we go to, and that's part of the routine. Now that that's not taking place, he's gone from, like, he'll say, "This is the end of the coronavirus. No more face masks." Because he's verbal, but he'll speak in fragments. And so he'll say that. Now what he's saying is that this is his first year of high school. It's like, I'm going, and he'll speak in the third person. Elijah will do so-and-so. Elijah will do so-and-so. And now what he's like, I want to go to the classroom tomorrow.
Uh,
And to the point where I have to be careful expressing it, because he hasn't cried, but you get close to it yourself as he's telling you, like, I
yeah,
want to go to the classroom tomorrow,
yeah.
please. And now it's starting to feel like, okay, now I'm bleeding for him. And we're just like, oh my gosh, what can we possibly do? So if you talk about the behavior and that being the need, I don't know who else is going through that with their child, but that seems to be something that, I don't know, maybe that's a tie to the need and the communication, because we'll go to places, but I'm concerned about the touching and the hands and everything. So he's willing to wear the mask, but really don't think he likes that. So maybe that's what you hit on. I don't know.
It's, well, the biggest thing. I have to circle back to the behaviors trying to tell you something, and your son better than I do or ever will. I'll get
Right.
glimpse of him, and different things like that. But you know your son the best. And see, already when I said to you, the behavior is trying to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Notice how you automatically went into, okay, so what has changed? What is he trying to tell me? A lot of
Yeah.
times when we look at the behavior, we start to think, oh, they're doing this to us. They're trying to stick it to us.
Yeah.
And when we turn that thinking to, they're trying to communicate something,
Yeah.
and we just haven't figured out what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's those moments when you're like, I wish I could climb in your head and, like, just what
You
is
would be
there? Like,
so lost with all the shiny things. I love shiny things.
I know I'd be distracted, but that's when you have moments and you're despair. You're just like, because you're human, so you go from, like, the moments where you're like, geez, all right already, and then guilt, to just
Oh,
full on empathy when you're like, tell me, I want to get inside your head, your emotions. I want to understand you. I want to know what you're saying so bad. So and people think that I'm patient. My wife has the patience of a saint, and so whatever patience I do have, that's where I get it from her example, because she has to reel me back in at times where I'm just like, okay, all right, and I'm sure everybody's been there.
Well, see, the stuff that you just talked about is what all parents go through. They have
Yeah.
all those feelings. What happens with a child with autism, because they're a maze to get into, because when we go to the books about, okay, child development should be happening this way. So we have really good references that have been around for a long time
Right.
about, okay, stages of children development and all that other kind of stuff. And then along came these amazing souls that only popped up here and there along throughout our history.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're popping up a lot more right now.
Right.
But we don't have enough really good literature that agrees.
Right.
Literature's all over the place. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it's your gut feeling. Like, when you go and you hear something, right? Sometimes you go, I don't know, that doesn't sound too right. And other
Yeah.
times you read something like, it sounds crazy, but I have a gut feeling it's going to work.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the secret. I'm no different.
Mm. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Dr. Jen,
So, and
this is all fascinating. I mean, it's like we didn't give you enough time.
I
Like,
hope so, because remember, you guys are on the side of me. You guys are you're the core of greatness on side of me. So
no, this is
I'm in a
amazing.
greatness
Like,
sandwich.
I'm so fascinated by, because it's just such. I think people need to know that there are folks like you out there. They need to know that, that there's, just what you just did with Shawn. I saw Shawn, I saw his mind shift, as you said, his behaviors, Elijah's behaviors trying to communicate something to you. I think that people need to be able to have access to folks like you you look at this so, I don't want to say simplistically, because it's not, obviously it's
No.
many,
I'm
many
very
years.
simple. I'm very simple.
You make it very
Put
simple.
shoes on, tie,
Yeah.
walk
Yeah.
in a direction. Some days
Yeah.
successful, some days not. Remember, I told you it's not unusual for me to get fired. So just know that too.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And we're almost up to our full hour. Well, again, I could sit here and listen to you
Oh,
talk
wow.
for another hour. I know
That
it's
went
gone by so
quick.
fast.
Didn't it? Yes.
It's amazing.
You
It's
guys are
amazing.
amazing. Like this,
Well,
you guys, like I said, sandwich of greatness here. That's what's really going on.
I just a bookend on this side. I wasn't even doing anything. So I'm blessed to be sitting here and observe all
Modest.
this.
You buttered his toast before you left when you borrowed his shirt. One more time.
That's right. That's right.
And everybody else is like, what does that mean? That's an inside joke.
But
That was in pre-production.
Wow.
Oh, that's right.
Time. Oh my gosh.
Well,
So
we are
amazing.
at that time where gratitude is of the utmost and important always, but we close with it. And today, it's just, I don't know, at an all-time high. Brian, go ahead and lead us out.
I mean, for us, you hit on some things that Shawn and I talk about all the time, especially during this time when we're experiencing the world differently than we ever have before. Those of us who have been alive for an average amount of time, and I think right now more than ever, I say all the time, empathy and love is more powerful and more needed than hate and divisiveness. And I think that hopefully. If anything that we share with this show is that there are amazing warriors out there, such as yourselves, who work as a light to serve other people and light the way for greatness to occur in other parts of the world. And I'm so grateful that you are out there helping these families with these children who are special beings. And so I thank you for your time. And for me, it's an honor to be sitting here and listening to all this. And Shawn, I get to do this every week with my partner. My partner in power, Shawn Francis. I love you for the work that we do here, and I get so much value out of all of this. So thank you for letting me be a part of all of this. So
Most definitely. And as we do each week, I thank you and I appreciate you. And things happen for a reason, and the reason why we connected is just fantastic. And what I bring here is just the byproduct of what is given to me by the amazing women in my life, which starts with my wife and warrior and partner in Thrive, Laura, and my mom. And for everyone that has taken just half a second to even tune in here and watch us from the first day that we just said, let's have a conversation on Facebook. Thank you so very much. And you can find us on our YouTube channel, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on several other outlets like 4 or 5 of them, and they continue to grow, and that takes place because of you. So we just hope to add value each and every week. And make sure, as you're watching this, remember, you know, your biggest nightmares are somebody else's dreams. And there's somebody out there that just needs to know for half a second that you care, more so than anything else. And Dr. Jen, we couldn't thank you enough for being here with us today. Thank you so much.
Great hour.
Thank you for letting me be part
Oh
of
my God.
the sandwich. You guys are awesome. Like having you guys on either side.
Well,
The tech
Thank you
guy.
so much.
We got to thank the tech guy because he's
Oh
good.
my gosh.
yes,
Sean Hall. Well,
our
we
producer
our producer, we wouldn't be able to do half of what we do without you. And we're continuing to go in the direction that we are because of him as well. We got some great things coming up. We'll be sharing that with everyone as we continue to go along as well. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so
Thank
much. We'll
you.
see you again next week.